This episode is brought to you by the GG button. Hit that GG button to call out a good game or to troll your friends.
Order yours today at ggbutton.com and use our coupon code 1PVS2P at checkout to save 10% off your order.
Again, go to ggbutton.com, use coupon code 1PVS2P at checkout and save 10%.
Thanks to our friends at the GG Button for supporting our podcast, and thanks to our listeners for supporting us.
Rumors swirl that GameStop employees may be lying to its customers. Oculus loses a lawsuit against ZeniMax, which could halt Rift sales. All of that and some new game releases, announcements, and more. You're listening to the 1P versus 2P podcast. I'm Taylor Ray. With me, as always, is my brother and co-host, Ryan Ray. We're starting off with
First Attack.
As usual, First Attack, our top stories from this past week in gaming. GameStop up to some new shenanigans lately. GameStop may be deceiving customers in a report initially picked up by Kotaku. GameStop is supposedly incentivizing employees to stop people from buying new games and hardware. We're going to get into why. And get this, GameStop staff say the company has threatened to fire people who don't hit certain sales quotas. So let's talk about what came of this, because there's a lot of outrage about it, both internally from GameStop itself, reportedly refuting these claims, and then also from customers who are saying they're just going to boycott the store now. So describe what the program is, Ryan.
Right, so this sales program called Circle of Life, this is something that a lot of people already suspected GameStop of doing. Now it's just been codified officially. Each GameStop store has different percentage quotas for, number one, pre-orders, number two, reward card subscriptions, number three, used game sales, and number four, game trade-ins. And of course, each of these quotas are based on the store's total transactions. They have to get a certain percentage of their overall monthly sales. So let's say, for example, if a store's quota for used game sales is something like 30%, and the store sells about $1,000 worth of merchandise, GameStop management expects that store to sell at least $300 worth of pre-owned merchandise. So it's kind of pushing things out of whack. And if somebody walks in and buys a new copy of a game, let's say something recent like Yakuza 0, that sale will put off the percentage quotas, and that means they will have to make up a used game sale, a few used game sales, more pre-orders to recover basically the hit of the new game purchase.
Yeah, it's offsetting someone else from pre-ordering another game or subscribing for a new rewards card or buying a used game or trading in some games to help pay for it. All of these things, these transactions are going to knock down all those percentages, those quotas that we described before. So in other words, yeah, exactly. The more new games an employee sells, the more used games they're going to have to sell to make up for it. So you can understandably see why employees and managers are now incentivized to mislead customers to say, no, we don't have that new in stock. How about this pre-owned, this used copy? Do you want to buy that instead? Even if something like that new game is actually in stock, they will deliberately lie to them.
Right, and there are a lot of cases where GameStop does a sale on a new game. Let's say Watch Dogs 2 was on sale over the holidays for about $30 at GameStop. But the used copy, they haven't discounted it. It's at $55 still. And they'll say, we don't have any new copies of Watch Dogs 2. Are you still interested in picking up a pre-owned copy? Even though they have probably a stack full of them in the back. And we have no way of knowing as a customer, of verifying that information. We're trusting on the GameStop employee to be honest with us. And I think this is one of those things that is going to push a lot of people, if they already weren't turned off by GameStop, I think it's just going to push them further away. In a response to Kotaku's reporting, GameStop COO Tony Bartel said, quote, "While the behaviors described in this news article are disappointing, I know they don't represent the vast majority of our associates and how they treat our customers." He also denied that the Circle of Life program, quote, "placed pressure on store associates to mislead customers on the value of certain products." That seems to me kind of like an empty statement. GameStop has been pushing, for as long as I've been a customer there, they've been pushing pre-orders and their Power Up Rewards program and why don't you buy a used copy? And frankly, I don't go into the GameStop locations that really push the sales tactic very hard on that. But after this, after they're kind of strong-arming more of their stores to do this, I don't think I want to be shopping at GameStop at all.
Look, consider yourself lucky that you don't get harassed, because in my local GameStop here in the Washington, D.C. area, the GameStop I go to, there's an employee greeting me at the door with a tablet in hand, pretending to care about how I'm doing. But essentially, he starts asking for my phone number to look up my account, to see what games I've recently purchased, to see if I want to order a new game in the same series, to see if I want to pre-order anything. It's the worst. He asks if I want to trade in something today, and I just don't want to be harassed like that. You know, here in the US, our shopping culture is one where we feel very uncomfortable if we're approached. I know I certainly feel that way. I just want to peruse and browse at my leisure. I don't want any hardcore sales tactics thrown at me. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. It makes me want to walk out the door immediately. And when GameStop employees and staff are trained to do this because they have to hit these quotas, or else they're punished internally by the company, whether it's, you know, reprimanded or put on notice or eventually fired, these kinds of things are really, really shameful. And I think this is still one of the death throes for GameStop. I feel like they are financially in huge trouble personally, and you could see it by the aggressive sales that they're doing, their lack of online sales. You see all these competitors like Best Buy and Amazon that just do the business better, that just offer so much more to customers. I really loathe walking into GameStops anymore. It's really just a very unpleasant experience, and a story like this really just reinforces that for me.
And I also want to pour one out for some of the very honest GameStop employees I've encountered over the years that are probably not going to be working there that much longer. I suspect a lot of people work at GameStop because that's probably one of the jobs that they can get. And also, they're very enthusiastic about video games. You know, why not have a job where you can be around video games all day long? To push out the kind of honest people over the years that have helped GameStop customers, have directed them to the right games, or have just been a fan of video games and like have fun banter with. It sucks that those people are being pushed out by basically a company directive to push some of their used game sales. What a bummer all around.
We didn't talk about this on the podcast before, but there was also reports that when people were trading in retro games and they were being tested by some distribution center in Texas where they recertify and test all these games, they were literally physically destroying a lot of copies if they weren't near perfect. So they were still accepting these games as trade-ins and then destroying massive quantities of old cartridges from everything from NES, Genesis, SNES, PlayStation 1 discs. If they weren't in excellent or like new condition, they were just, even if they were working, I can't remember where I read these reports, but they were just physically destroying them. And that is just a shame, contributing and artificially inflating the prices of precious used games from the past. And I think that's really disgusting. At the very least, they could have donated their extra stock they couldn't sell to something like Goodwill. Somebody will make use of it. Somebody will repurpose it. Make some arts and crafts out of it, for God's sakes. Like, I'm trying to find less reasons to dislike GameStop, but I keep hearing these terrible things about it beyond just personally experiencing shopping there. All right, moving on to our next story, which was major news in the industry. A lot of buzz about this one. Oculus and ZeniMax, their lawsuit is now over, ending with a $500 million judgment awarded to ZeniMax. A Dallas, Texas jury awarded that after finding that Oculus co-founder Palmer Luckey, and by extension his company, Oculus, failed to comply with a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA he signed. In awarding ZeniMax $500 million, the jury also said that Oculus did not misappropriate trade secrets as contended by ZeniMax. I believe the original asking price for this lawsuit was something like $4 billion in damages. Do I have that right?
Right, yeah. This judgment is overall much lower than the figure ZeniMax originally sought. They originally sought about $2 billion in compensation and a separate $4 billion in punitive damages, basically alleging that Oculus stole the code from ZeniMax when employee John Carmack was still a part of that company. John Carmack, of course, legendary developer in id Software, also worked on Rage, a bunch of other stuff. He moved over to Oculus, and when he moved, he took some code with him, and that was actually part of the contention in this lawsuit. He was actually brought up as an expert witness in this trial, and I don't know if you saw this, Taylor, but there was some computer logs that showed that right before he left the company, he actually Googled how to delete my hard drive so that the paper trail would be, or excuse me, the digital trail would be invisible, but it wasn't so invisible because he got caught red-handed doing it.
You'd think someone like John Carmack, someone so savvy, someone who's been around the industry for so long, would know better than that. Something definitely shady was going on here when you're talking about research and development and code, programming code that he worked on while employed by ZeniMax. Those are trade secrets that I have to say, if I were management at ZeniMax, you would definitely want to protect. And when you hear that he jumped ship, you feel jilted, and then he works on this groundbreaking new product, you want a piece of that. He worked on a lot of this in this lawsuit that has now come to light. He worked on a lot of this while under ZeniMax's employ. So it's just one of those things that was very contentious. He even wrote this Facebook post after the lawsuit was over. He basically admitted to wrongdoing. He said, yes, indeed, I took the code. I shouldn't have. I made backups. I should have disclosed that or not taken it at all. But then he tried to argue that was really semantics. He really didn't need ZeniMax's. He didn't need their resources to come up with this code on his own. But apparently the jury disagreed. And ZeniMax told Polygon that it may seek an injunction to temporarily stop the sale of Oculus Rift headsets. So that's really the damage that's being done here. We could see that Oculus has to stop because of this lawsuit.
Right, and this really counteracts the narrative of Oculus being kind of like a homespun company, Palmer Luckey sitting there in his garage just like Steve Jobs, building this VR headset along with the help of John Carmack on the side, eventually recruiting him to the company, and then getting bought out by Facebook. It's not this like touchy-feely story that we all thought it was. It's really more a story now, confirmed by this court verdict, or at least the jury thought anyway, of corporate espionage and Carmack taking the code that he worked out at one company and just moving it to another without any official change of hands, without any money changing hands. It was just plain stealing. And as he said, you kind of have to feel for Carmack because he wasn't directly sued. He's not actually paying part of this $500 million verdict. He said, quote, being sued sucks. I totally feel that. It does suck. Did you also see that tweet from CheapED of Cheap Ass Gamer who said, congratulations to ZeniMax, the first successful VR company?
Yeah, the most successful VR company so far. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cheeky. I mean, that's good commentary right there, because let's be real. We talked about this in our Game of the Year shows, is that this trend of VR companies and these headsets not taking off with customers. They're just so cost prohibitive and so on and so forth. Go back and listen to those discussions we had. I just love that this internal infighting in the industry is going to affect something that is already in dire straits. But I found this article pretty interesting. Brian Crescente over at Polygon wrote an editorial with the headline that says how the $500 million VR lawsuit might be a good thing for the technology. There were some really good points and arguments being made by him over the result of this lawsuit, over the trial. Just to summarize the article, there's this consulting firm, this Super Data Research. They're this firm that tracks a lot of industry metrics. They're arguing that with the trial, the payout, and all this media coverage that's surrounding all of this is really great for the industry. Quote, this is a really important step towards VR legitimacy. A legal case of this size substantiates the potential of VR technology, end quote. This is from Stephanie Lamas, Vice President of Product Research and Strategy at Superdata. So really, really interesting take on this. But the lingering question here is that, are we going to see Oculus support the existing headsets out there? Is this just a death sentence for the company? It's hard to tell at this point. If ZeniMax fails with its injunction, if they don't halt sales because they see this as lost revenue, that it's indeed their product completely, it's a very interesting time for a fledgling VR market right now. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, let's move on to some rather sad news. Masaya Nakamura, who founded Namco in 1955, he passed away at the age of 91. Bandai Namco reported earlier this past week. He was prepared to have the publisher notify the public that he was about to die. In fact, he was very much aware that this is in the public interest, and they had a very, very closed funeral service with just very close relatives. Here's the thing about this guy. A lot of people don't necessarily equate Nakamura with Namco. He didn't create Pac-Man, but he really had this amazing, amazing career.
Right, so Namco originally started as a children's ride company before moving on to the early struggling gaming industry with other titans like Atari and Sega. Nintendo was a playing card company back in those days. All these Japanese companies were something else before they got into video games. And Nakamura was part of the culture back then to get Namco into video games and create all the classics that we know today. Pac-Man, Dig Dug, you name it, that was under Namco's umbrella. He helped bring it to life. This company originally survived the great video game crash of 1983 and pioneered a ton of different arcade firsts, like the multi-arcade cabinet setup. And Namco would eventually merge with Bandai in 2006, a merger that Nakamura was a part of. So rest in peace, Masaya Nakamura. He did a lot for the industry and for Namco in general. Great guy.
Moving on to our new video game releases.
I love new releases.
This week we have Nioh, or Nioh, however you want to pronounce it, spelled Nioh, on PS4. It's an exclusive. The tagline for this game is Samurai Bloodborne. That's the best way to describe it.
Right. So this game is from Team Ninja, who you might know from Ninja Gaiden. They have shamelessly cribbed from the Dark Souls series while putting their own Japanese flavor on it. Unlike the Souls series, this game does have some unique aspects. There's a loot mechanic to the game, a la Diablo. You pick up weapons and armor by killing enemies. And combat is slightly different, with low, middle, and high stance changes that change up your moveset and capabilities. I'm very interested in this game. I played through all 3 Dark Souls games this past year and really had a good time with that. And I think that since the Souls series is more or less on a hiatus for now, I'm excited for other developers to get at this idea of hard combat, very animation locked movement, worlds that are very interesting and slightly mysterious. I love these kinds of games for sure.
We'll leave it at that because I am not interested in any of these games at all. Very off-put by Bloodborne. That was the first time I tried one of these super brutal games, and I just couldn't get into it. It's just one of these series that's not for me. I don't like the style. Well, I shouldn't say that. I do like the visual and graphical style. I really don't like how it plays, and I don't want to struggle and bash my head against the wall to progress in these kinds of games. So I'll leave it to you if you want to potentially review this game.
The one thing I will say about all these games is that I think the bar to get past that initial hurdle is very, very high. I think all these games kind of speak a shared common language. There's always bonfires, there's always bosses. Once you've played through a few of the games, you kind of are familiar that's like, okay, this game has a bunch of traps set for me. There's probably going to be an ambush here. This is probably how I'm going to do this. They occasionally throw in some new things into the mix, a new boss mechanics or whatever. And I think once you learn some of these patterns, you can kind of start to speak this video game language and get through some of these games. But I agree with you. It's not the most friendly to newcomers.
But getting to that mindset for me is what makes it really not fun. None of that sounds fun to me. To me, it just screams unfair, and I don't want to waste my time playing something that's just completely unfair to me. But anyway, moving on to Digimon World Next Order on PS4. You're planning on playing this, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I pre-ordered it. I have a copy sitting here at my desk. I love the Digimon World series, and last year's Digimon game, while good, while whetting the appetite for more Digimon-related content, wasn't exactly the game I was looking for necessarily, but this game is an open-world RPG, and the gameplay here is more in line with PS1 cult classic Digimon World. And here you'll raise and train Digimon similar to how Digimon originally were, like Tamagotchi-like keychain toys, in order to explore and battle in the digital world. And if you're familiar at all with the Digimon World franchise, combat here is a little more strategy than direct action. You kind of issue general commands to your two Digimon partners in this game. So you say attack or defend or observe the enemy, as opposed to, like in Pokemon, issuing direct commands like use tackle or use flamethrower or whatever. The Digimon World games, have always been more about stat tracking and breeding the Digimon to kind of get them to evolve into certain forms. Seeing the ones that you really like and kind of completing your collection. I really enjoy this kind of game, this monster raising, monster breeding, monster training simulator. We don't see much of these games anymore. Monster Rancher was...
Well, besides Pokemon.
Besides Pokemon, right. But that's more of a battling simulator, right? There are some aspects of training, but this is kind of a whole different thing. And I get that it's a niche audience. I'm in the niche audience, so I'm very excited about it. Maybe look for a review from me in about a week or two when I play through and finish this game.
How was it different from the last one with Cyber Sleuth? Is it supposed to be super different or similar?
So Cyber Sleuth was kind of more of a Persona-like dungeon crawler. There were Digimon. There was an aspect of training. That was more kind of what you would consider an RPG these days. It wasn't necessarily like a breeding, monster raising simulator that the Digimon games have been before.
All right, fair enough. I played this next game that came out just this past week, but it was weird because it was released for some and not for others. Fire Emblem Heroes is what we're talking about on iOS and Android. I saw a lot of people on Twitter posting that their screenshots and the heroes that they're getting, because it's a gacha style collectible style game where you're rolling for new heroes to collect and fight with. It was weird how they rolled this out. But anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about it, because Ryan, you've almost already beaten this. So what I've heard from so far?
Yeah, it's a very easy game. It's kind of short. It's only about 9 chapters plus a prologue. This being a mobile game, of course, there are other aspects to it. There are time-limited special events. There's a PvP arena mode. There's kind of like a training tower to level up your guys. This is a very bare bones Fire Emblem strategy game. You move your heroes in very small maps with your fingers to try and attack enemies. There's of course the classic weapon triangle: lances beat swords, swords beat axes, axes beat lances. Then of course you have spells and bows, blue, red, and green. And I think that this is a very easy game. I've only been playing it for 2 days since it came out, and I'm already most of the way through it. If you even do a little bit of the summoning, and let's be clear here that the orbs, the currency, the free-to-play currency that they've introduced in this game are pretty easy to get. You get one every time you beat a level. You get 10 just from linking your My Nintendo account. It takes about 20 orbs to get 5 summons all at once. It's pretty easy to clear the game when they give you a lot of freebies, let's say, in this launch window.
Don't tell Nintendo that, because then they're going to change the rate. They want you to dump money into this thing.
Well, and the money exchange rate, I'm not sure if you've looked at the free to play transaction table for this. It's not a best value. There are to get 3 orbs plus like a bonus 2 orbs or whatever. It's like $4. That's very high. There's of course an option for all you whales out there to buy like 180 orbs plus a 70 orb bonus for $75. But I'm not sure who would want to do that unless you want to collect the entire stable of Fire Emblem characters over the years. That's just not necessary to complete this game. I've gotten one 5-star hero, Takumi from Fire Emblem Fates. He's of course the bow user from that game, very popular character. I'm looking to get some other popular characters, but I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be playing this game because I'm almost done with it.
Yeah, it's a very easy tactical game. I played through the tutorial, did a couple rolls, got some heroes I'd never recognized. I'm not that huge of a Fire Emblem fan. My favorite, and the only one I've really spent any extended amount of time with, was Awakening. And then you have characters from every game in the universe, including ones that weren't even released out here in the US. So yeah, I mean, I see the appeal. I see the collect fest that people want to get their favorite heroes. But yeah, so far, it's super easy. I'm definitely not as far as you, but it's interesting, though. I feel like this is Nintendo's first real success when it comes to mobile games from a gameplay perspective. I don't know how it's doing sales-wise when compared against Miitomo and Super Mario Run, of course. I think it's a hit. They should definitely take lessons learned from this and keep moving forward with this, adapting the actual gameplay from Fire Emblem. It's very similar, just very dumbed down and simplified, but it is what it is. It's definitely an interesting first stab at this.
I think the one aspect of the games that aren't represented here are the relationship simulator. I think a lot of more recent Fire Emblem fans are more interested in the kind of support conversations and the you marrying your waifu or whatever.
Yeah.
And that aspect of the Fire Emblem games is not represented here at all. I think that's a little bit disappointing. I think there's some very cool character art, however, very, very stylish, well presented. Overall, a decent Fire Emblem package. Maybe it's the Nintendo trying to whet the appetite for more Fire Emblem games.
Very polished and decent voice acting, too. I was very surprised at that. You don't see that in a lot of mobile titles. All right, last but not least, we have for this week Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World for 3DS. This is a port of the 2015 Wii U game, Yoshi's Woolly World. There's some few redesigned levels here, some new added features, swapping out Yoshi's yarn eggs for Poochie's that act more of like an AI partner to Yoshi. You have these little dogs running around behind you. Very short game because I think it's just like the Kirby series. It's really intended for kids mostly on handhelds. It takes about 10 to 12 hours supposedly to beat. But I mean, with these games, I really, really love the very, very cute graphic style. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I really appreciate the art in this game. I'm not sure that this game is for me necessarily. This is kind of the spiritual successor to Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. And although I enjoyed that SNES classic, I'm not really on board for more of that style of gameplay necessarily. I think there are some people who the yarn aesthetic is very appealing, and I'm glad that this game serves that audience.
But that Poochie amiibo is so cute. You had these woolly Yoshis released before. Now you have you can buy the 3DS edition that includes that. With the game, bundled with the game. It's adorable, I have to say.
Let's do a check-in on you. How are you with amiibos these days?
Look, I made the decision several months ago to sell off any extra amiibos I had that weren't a part of the Smash series, and I felt liberated. I felt vindicated. But to some extent, I also felt furious and frustrated against Nintendo because I was buying up certain amiibos that were limited out there that they hadn't reprinted. And then, I was paying a premium. I was paying sometimes twice the amount, $20, $30, up to $30 sometimes, because there weren't enough out there. You couldn't buy these games independently, these figures independently on your own for what they retailed for. They retailed for $12, $13 usually. And now you see all these closeout sales, so I'm kind of pissed off that I've wasted a bunch of money on this, but I guess I deserve that for trying to become a toy collector. I don't know. I feel like I just want to complete the collection once all the Smash series characters finally come out. They're missing a few like Cloud and Bayonetta. Who knows if they're going to come out, but I'm sticking to that. I've sold off the Mario series that I had. I sold them off on eBay and whatnot and traded a few. And right now they're just sitting in a box in storage because I live in a small apartment and I'd have no place to display them. I wish I had a basement or man cave to bone them out and admire them, and actually play them. But right now they're just sitting in a box. So it is what it is. But I feel like if I didn't complete it, I felt like it was a time wasted. But I have no interest in buying like Fire Emblem characters that are coming out. I don't want those Splatoon figures. That's all I have to say about it. I know you're sitting there silently judging me, though.
Well, I have a few of the amiibos myself, but lucky for you, Nintendo has given you the good news that they're going to put out more of these figures to tempt you into potentially buying them. But it doesn't sound like you're necessarily sold on that concept. And quite frankly, the DLC that they've included as part of the amiibos when you tap them on the Wii U or the 3DS or now on the Switch, because they've included a NFC reader on that thing, what the gameplay functionality of that has been. The biggest functionality so far has been in the Zelda games. They're going to include on the Twilight Princess HD Wii U version, they had like a more difficult mode that you could access by putting the Ganondorf figure. There's surely going to be some gameplay relevant thing on Breath of the Wild because they were releasing amiibos alongside that. So if it's not going to, they're going to try to get you with the cute figures like Poochie, or they're going to try to get you at more modes with the Zelda games. So,
but you own a few and you actually use them, right? You've opened them up and you actually have tapped them out and you have them on display. The few that you have like what, 3 or 4 or 5? I've seen them in your apartment.
Yeah, I have about 6 or so. And I've, in collector parlance, I've devalued my collectible, but
by opening them and actually using them for their intended purpose, right?
Yeah. Woe is me. All right, Taylor, let's move on.
All right, moving on to some new video game announcements.
Here comes a new challenger.
I feel like we have to have this conversation every year. Tony Hawk being so disappointing for, well, let's say, the past 5 years, 10 years? I don't even...
The better part of a decade, let's say.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. But anyway, apparently Tony Hawk himself says a new game is in the work, but without Activision's involvement. He said about this in a tweet, in a documentary about the Pro Skater series. And then you have this YouTuber, his name is Ice Bears Forever. He's directing this video, and then you have some input from a former Neversoft producer, Ralph D'Amato. He worked on a lot of those Tony Hawk games, up to Project 8, so very well versed in the history of this stuff. What else is there to say about this game? Not much yet.
He hasn't officially announced a title or anything. He just has said that, quote, the game is not coming from Activision. He's potentially working on something, but it's so early he couldn't talk about it. He doesn't have any contracts signed. It's exciting. And he's trying to get together some developers and producers on this game. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5, which is a game that came out, I feel like a year or 2 years ago, was
I believe it was last year, wasn't it?
I don't remember. It was so bad.
Anyway,
it didn't even register on my I'm aware of this game map. It was broken at launch. It didn't have good support. Even if the game was completely working, it just didn't seem that fun. And they were trying to make a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game like the ones that made the franchise so popular in the first place, right? Like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. Legitimately 3 very good skateboarding games. And then kind of everything after those 3 games has been hit or miss. I think some people were fans of 4, the Project Underground games, where they kind of partnered up with the Jackass guys. And then Tony Hawk kind of went into some like really weird places, mobile games, crappy handheld ports. Peripherals, Tony Hawk Skate, Tony Hawk Ride.
Yeah. Do you remember the time we were living together here in DC and I went to Best Buy and I saw Tony Hawk Ride for $10 with the whole skateboard controller, right? Full size that you could step on and stand on. I said, oh, it can't be that bad. I mean, for something to be discounted like this, it can't be that bad. I went home, I played it. I think I played all of 10 minutes of it, and it was, I'm not even exaggerating, one of the worst games I've ever played in my entire life. There was just absolute broken detection on the controller. You would pop up I mean, the skater wouldn't react until like 10 seconds later. You would put your hand over the sensors. The game would detect the wrong hand. It was horrendous. The on-rails thing had so much potential, but so bad. I mean, this series has not been relevant for years, and it makes me furious. But it also, we didn't really talk about this before, but we should mention the whole Skate 4 stuff. Did you see that?
Hashtag Skate 4. There was an EA call this week, and they said officially, right now anyway, that Skate 4 is not officially in development. They hear all the calls out for that. There was actually an official EA PR person who has been putting out in their social channels, playing along with the meme, hashtag Skate 4. Look, the Tony Hawk games popularized video game skateboarding, arguably actually popularized real life skateboarding for a lot of people, and eventually led to EA developing the skate games, which are a little more technical as opposed to Tony Hawk Pro Skater's arcade style mechanics. But the Skate series is a little more recent. Those games are a little better, I'd say, overall than the Tony Hawk franchise's more recent output. And I think I would be more not interested in these skateboarding games at all, more interested in Skate 4 than I would be in a Tony Hawk Pro Skater 6, let's say.
Well, I've been a huge fan of both of those series, albeit with Tony Hawk, it was 1 through 3, maybe 4. With Skate, I played a lot of Skate 1, 2, and 3, even online, believe it or not. And Skate 4, I just loved how that guy, their PR guy, just tweeted out hashtag Skate 4, and then everybody was just clamoring and buzzing over it. They had to address that in that that conference call, that it wasn't in development, but it could be. So just putting that out there could be some fan support for that. And you got to make skateboard games great again. So just putting that out there.
Well, speaking of EA, they also gave us some more details on Star Wars Battlefront 2. This game is the sequel, of course, to a very popular Battlefront game. This will span multiple Star Wars eras. They're including a story mode in this game and some other details. Taylor, why don't you break this down for us?
Yeah, very exciting that they're including a single player mode here. There's more locations, more heroes, more characters. That's awesome. DICE, Motive, Criterion, all of those developers are working on this game, being published by EA, looking at a holiday 2017 release. I love this. I mean, Star Wars Battlefront 1 was a huge fan. It made my top 10 for Game of the Year 2 years ago. Phenomenal stuff. I'm very excited to hear more about this game and see some more footage. I'm very glad that they greenlit another sequel because, I mean, so much fun. Love the scale of these multiplayer battles. Let's wrap this week's show up. Ryan, ready for the bonus stage?
Yeah, let's do it.
The Resident Evil film franchise, starting with the first Resident Evil film in 2002, is set to cross the $1 billion mark with the final chapter movie, earning $35 million in Japan when it first opened in December, and an estimated $80 million by the end of this weekend internationally.
Do you have any interest in these movies? They clearly made a lot of them, and they look just very campy to me.
Never seen them, have no interest in any of them.
Well, a glowing review, obviously. All right, with Capcom not working on new Mega Man games, fans have stepped in. Creator Peter Storstand and his team have spent 8 years developing a game called Mega Man 2.5D, a Mega Man game with 2.5D graphics a la Paper Mario. In terms of stages and bosses, it's kind of a greatest hit collection from past Mega Man games, and we've included the link in the show notes for your perusal. And yes, Capcom is aware of the game and has no plans to shut it down.
Okay, with my nostalgia goggles on, somebody make a Mega Man X remake or remaster. I don't care. I want something like that. Those are my personal favorites from the series. MMA fighter Angela Overkill Hill, dressed up as Street Fighter's Sagat, complete with an eye patch and hand wrap, even did his laughing victory pose at her weigh-in for the UFC 104 fight. But believe it or not, this isn't the first time she's pulled off a cosplay stunt. She posed as Dulcine another time, too.
I just have one response, Taylor. This is what we thought about it.
You win. Perfect.
Of course. That goes without saying. All right, that's it. Remember to listen and subscribe to our show, the 1P versus 2P podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, including iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn, Clamor, or just bookmark our website, 1pvs2p.com. There you can read our gaming blog too.
Our sources for this week's stories have been posted at the link in the show notes. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter. We're very active there at 1pvs2p_podcast.
As always, thanks to Phonetic Hero for letting us play his music for our show, Coffee Stomp and Super Manly Brothers X. Both songs are part of the compilation project Chiptunes Equals Win. I'm Taylor Ray. That's my co-host Ryan Ray. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
You win. Perfect.